getting on. Sat by the fireside, pondering on. Picture book, pictures of your mama, taken by your papa a long time ago. Picture book of people with each other to prove they love each other a long time ago. Picture book, picture book.
Well, that's a live look outside with blue skies here on this Thursday, April the 2nd. Almost hard to believe it is a new month and a new meet at that, but couldn't have asked for a nicer day in the weather department here in Hallandale Beach as we gear up for a 9 race Thursday afternoon from that ground floor up to our third floor clubhouse studios. Good to have you with us, everybody. Hope you and your loved ones are doing okay, to say the least, as Jason Blewett catches up with you from our clubhouse studios. And we'll have 9 races beginning a new chapter of the 2020 racing season. And as I said on Sunday, however, wherever, we really appreciate you tuning in here to Gulfstream Park and supporting us and thoroughbred racing in South Florida, and hope you're doing okay. We'll turn the page, and obviously it was a record setting on many fronts, championship season during the winter meet here at Gulfstream Park, and a belated congratulations to both Arad Ortiz Jr. and Todd Pletcher for respectively taking down the jockey and trainer standings. A fresh slate, though, for everybody. The stats begin anew because this is the start of a new meet, and we'll move forward with a friendly reminder. If you want to give the new First Bet app a little bit of a test drive and test spin, it's waiting for you, in fact, over at the App Store, or if you're an Android user, you can certainly get online and punch up first.com/bet and take advantage of that $10 credit plus up to a $500 bonus with that promo code Sport of Kings. Again, I've been enjoying test driving the new First Bet app on my iPhone and iPad, and certainly recommend it, and you can't go wrong with the free money there. Moving ahead, again, we scale things back with the start of a new month and with the winter season in the rearview mirror, as crazy as that sounds, and maybe in many respects as hard as that is to believe, but we do, for the most part, scale things back, and we'll get back, in fact, revert back to running just a nine race weekday card. And with that in mind, the Jackpot Rainbow 6, which is bolstered and sweetened by a $100,000 guarantee, that will start in race number 4 this afternoon. Now, first race post is about 1:05 Eastern, so we're about 50 minutes out, and I'm going to take a little bit of a gander. And this, by the way, is a very solid Thursday afternoon here at GP. There are 3 individual 3-year-old or 3 and up maiden races on the card altogether that really have a mid-January or mid-February feel to them. And this was a very difficult early pick 5 that I had looked at and toyed around with for quite some time. In the end, I opted to stand alone with trainer Jane Sabelli, and I trimmed the other Sabelli out of the third race. Jane is saddling 2 horses in that 4-horse field. I am hoping the drop in class will be enough to get it done. Again, only having to face 3 horses for the number 1 Talk the Talk with Luca Panici, and just felt as though perhaps that horse, who I do like quite a bit, that filly, might just be the most logical looking single throughout the entire sequence. But a difficult first race. I mean, you can even see the early betting. I mean, as far as just the field size and what it looks like with about 43 minutes on the clock and 50, give or take, until the first race is run. This is a race that lacks sort of a traditional quote-unquote horse to beat or clear-cut favorite. A lot going on in the first race. Now, I'm towards the outside, and I am only 2 deep in this race. I mean, clearly the positives for a horse who's a lukewarm 3-1 favorite now, the number 3, living vicariously, you've got the speed, and this has been a turf course over the last few weeks, noticeably, that has gotten pretty friendly and pretty kind to early speed horses. That horse, I would imagine, will be favored off of his last race, a career best speed figure, and a good effort for trainer Michael Tomlinson. But moving to my top pick, the 10 Mr. Nappy, I didn't want to get too cute here. I think he makes a lot of sense on just traditional metrics because he's dropping back down in a maiden claiming company, and he's just facing an easier field. I get at times those maiden 50s versus turf sprint special weights can be a little interchangeable, and maybe you don't get a drastic difference in terms of just field quality from division to division, but I still feel he's been facing the best horses of late. And then you've got the Mark Casse horse who drew in the number 14 Speedy Hans from the outside. Mark Casse, given the fact that this barn has probably compiled 4,000 starters over the last 5 years, has only saddled 15 off the claim horses in that 5-year span, 4 of 1. And he's picked things up. In fact, this is his 4th off the claim runner in 2020 alone, and I think Gary Barber owned every single one of those new claims. Adds a little bit of an intrigue and an absolute wild card status from the outside in the first race. Let's move on to the second here, and we'll continue on and head to that fast main track, and we'll start Thursday's early pick 4 with a 3-and-up filly mare, $16,000 to $14,000 maiden claiming race. And although, again, much like the first, you've got some bulk and a robust field size, there were 2 main horses in this race, in the 6 Bibiana and the 10 Markistan, who clearly I put first and second. And although they are the big 2, they both come attached into this race with major changes. The first, of course, is the big drop in class with the 6 Bibiana, who's been a rare Safi claim who didn't work out over the winter meet. Safi had claimed this horse a week before Christmas, ran her back right out of the claim box 4 days later, about 96 hours later, and I liked her last time, and she didn't get it done for maiden 50 here, right around Fountain of Youth time. But again, I get a sense they're just saying, look, we paid too much money for her. Let's put her where she can win. And that speed she brings, dropping in for maiden 16 at 5.5, I think that is going to go a long way and is clearly a dangerous weapon in a field like this. Meanwhile, the major change with the 10 Markistan is the fact that she's a new claim for trainer Jorge Delgado, who's got good numbers in new acquisitions, new claims. Georgie's done a good job since going out on his own, and I like that this filly by Kozan has had over 30 days just to get acclimated to her new barn, and no reason to think she wouldn't run a solid race this afternoon with Louis from the outside. Moving on to that third race on this fast and firm Thursday, just a 4-horse field after scratches, and very much a case where trainer Jane Sabelli is sending out 2 runners in the 1 Talk the Talk and the number 4 horse in Take Charge Again. They both have speed. They are both dropping down in class. I just preferred the races of late for the inside horse, the number 1 Talk the Talk, and we'll take her hopefully to the wire or track before taking over in that quartet in Thursday's third. We'll take a little time out here on this live edition of Gulfstream today and back with much more after this. And we are back, everybody. Good to have you with us, and hope you're doing well. Hope you're healthy, and appreciate you supporting us here at Gulfstream Park in South Florida Racing. Jason Blewett and Pete Aiello holding down the fort on what figures to be more or less a sleepy Thursday. But make no mistake, although the winter meet is technically in the books with previous Sunday's 10-race card, we are really, launching into a giant Thursday here. There are maiden special weights, as I had noted at at the top of the broadcast that really have a prime-time winter meet type feel to them. And in fact, 3 of them play part in today's Jackpot Rainbow Six. We do have the carryover of 100, or I should say the guarantee, rather, of $100,000. And I know Ron Nicoletti taking a shot at this Jackpot Rainbow Six. Now, there is a single in the mix this afternoon for good old Ronzoni. He's 3-4-8 to start. I see down the line in race number 7, and this is the first time I am seeing Ronnie's ticket along with all of you. So he likes Avutant. That's the Ken McPeak course, and Filly by Uncle Mo. She gets extra points there. She had perhaps, and I've got 3 really interesting last out replays that we're going to go over in races 4, 7, and 9. But that being said, I think there's a lot to digest with all 3 individual replays in 3 different races. She may have had the most eventful trip, and a lot of it was her own undoing. If she has matured since that race, she might be a little faster and just too good for the competition. So Ken McPeak for Ronnie in that race 7 single with jockey Dylan Davis, a $48.60 Jackpot Rainbow Six ticket. Now, as far as the 4th race is concerned, this is the opening maiden special weight on the card, and a good-looking cast where you just got a multi-layered race, including a few different rematches here. And the first one we're going to take a look at is Cat Lady. And why don't we backtrack to her effort here? She's one of 5 horses, by the way. We're only going to have her highlighted because she had the worst of it by far in this race as far as the bad luck and just bad trip that she had and misfortune. But 5 horses are coming out of this race. Now, she's in the orange cap and the blue colors and the orange sleeves. She had an outside post. You could see not in a great spot as they enter the turn, but here comes, boom. I mean, bumped is an understatement. I mean, she was slammed and almost knocked over into. Now, off that wide trip early, she was not able to save ground or at least get covered up. And I was impressed, although she'll lose a tough one to the Eclipse horse who's about to take the lead for Grand Motion in Duchess of Sussex. I was impressed that Cat Lady, even with that big bumping incident around the first turn, never quit in this race at all. And I see no reason to think why she just doesn't run another solid race this afternoon. She's going to need her running shoes on. Even looking at horses like the 8 Maminas team, a few horses, in fact, are coming out of a different rematch race, 3, in fact, from February 23rd. Not only the 8 Maminas team, but the number 4, Too Sexy, who's got Christophe Clement calling the shots. Now, she clearly ran a fine race first out, and I love when a barn just gets on a big run. And looking at just the last 4 weeks of production for Christophe Clement, a 4-week span that includes a 2,000 career win milestone, you've got a barn that is 14 for 32. Now, to be fair, these starters, there's also a few winners in that sample size that occurred north of us up at Tampa Bay Downs. But the point is, love when a barn, especially a barn that's got good horses with a world-class horseman like Christophe, gets in his zone, and Too Sexy is a major player, along with trainer Chad Brown, who I would imagine, and Chad unleashed a very good-looking Into Mischief filly here last Sunday in Center Isle. I would imagine Chad's horses, Publication and Althoff on the rail, both of these fillies were probably trained for and prepping to start during the Keeneland meet. I guess their loss in a way is our gain here, and we'll learn a little bit more about the ability of both fillies. Here's some backstory. Needless to say, both not only have a world-class 4-time Eclipse Award champion trainer setting them out. As far as picking apart who's in the family and what the lineage is, I mean, you've got 2 quality, foundation type second dams with Althoff for Shadwell. It's Golden Apples, who won a whole bunch of stakes and a whole lot of money. With Publication, you got to go back to Flute as her second dam for the late Bobby Frankel. First fall out of Falimbi with the 6th Publication, and she was a good horse who won a bunch of races. And then you've got the second fall out of the Althoff mare, who is by Smart Strike. Good little 4th race, undoubtedly a highlight as we start the guaranteed Rainbow Six. Let's move on to the 5th. For all of the quality, per se, or rematches and just a lot going on in the 4th race, there's a ton going on within the borders of this 5th race, yet it's pretty much just stacked up in one category as we start the late pick 5. All 3 of these horses that I have to start this play, the 3, 4, and 9, are new claims, and there are some high percentage claiming outfits in the mix as well, including Jorge Delgado, Dominic Schettino, and Saffie Joseph Jr., who's second off the claim with the number 9 Tuesday's Rose. Down the line, spoke about Chad's two firsters in the fourth. I've been waiting. I think a lot of people probably have been waiting for Pricing Exercise to run back, and that horse, I think, unless somebody really gets bet strongly out of the woodwork, that horse is going to be a pretty clear favorite in the last race off a pretty tough debut, a wide trip debut, and more on Pricing Exercise in just a few moments here. As far as the fifth, though, again, I am very much with the new acquisitions, and what won me over with the 4 Sues, it's her speed. I know she's also off the claim for Dominic Schettino, who absolutely made the most of his starters down here during the winter meet. I love her speed here, and I think that is the one real defining or maybe even separating trait that she has against this field, where Fancy Fox should run pretty well as she comes in off a distant 8th, but his first time Georgie Delgado with Luis Saez, and the 9 Tuesday's Rose, who's second off the claim for Saffie. Let's move on to the 6th this afternoon. This is a pretty evenly matched field. Save maybe for Hartling. I think, to be fair, Hartling, the number 4, is the story of the race in this spot because she's just turned into a win machine, which I'm going to give her some props here. You don't often see horses running lower level claimers or close to the lowest level, racking up one win after another, but this Mucho Macho Man filly's been really good on turf and on dirt. I also love the Likely Trip because she drew well in this race, and there are some very run-and-gun type speedy horses to her outside, mainly the 6 Dienda, who's probably going to show speed, the 9 Lurusia, and the 10 I'll Do It My Way. I think Hartling's going to get a good trip. Does she win 5 in a row? Stay tuned to find out. I put her over the number 10, I'll Do It My Way, who I think proved last time out, good trip, good ground-saving trip aside. That maiden win 2 back at a big price was not a fluke, and she's obviously pretty sharp right now for trainer Ronnie Spatz. Let's move back to the main track coming up on the 7th race. Ronnie Single is housed in this one, the filly that I have in the 2nd spot. And let's take a look at this daughter of Uncle Mo, Avutante, who really just had a world of trouble. And again, a lot of it was her own doing, the first of which from that head-on was the bad stumble in the red cap, and that was a legit tough stumble. Secondly, at this point, you're going, okay, she looks a little one pace turning for home, and maybe she's not going to gain, and she's either going to run 2nd or 3rd at this point. Now, the winner, Miss T2, kind of just sped off, but watch not only the greenness and the fact she bounces to her inside lead, she's lugging in, she's just as green as grass, the fact that Avutante was eventually getting to Misty 2 in a race that, at least on Bayer, came up fast. And she is, without a doubt, I think, the measuring stick that all these 3-year-old fillies or 3-and-up fillies and mares in this race have to be judged against. I still think she's going to be a little overbet in this race, and I don't know about 8-1 because I like a horse in the number 6, Assume, who with her in the race, Assume, looking at Todd Pletcher, his numbers here with horses, second-time starters like this at Gulfstream, I think there's a good chance off somewhat of a, on paper, lackluster debut. I think she's a worthy foe to the favorite in this race. I know Assume got bet down a 3-1, 12-horse field, and you look at her, showed speed, more or less, vied and chased outside, 3 to 4 wide, and finished 4th. Going back and looking at that race, 3 speed horses hooked up across the track. And that race was like a Chernobyl reactor 4 that just melted down off the quarter pole. I think that effort out of Assume in reality is a lot better and stronger than maybe it looks at first blush on paper. And I'm also encouraged that Misty 2, who beat the favorite in this race, and we just looked at Misty 2 beating Avutante in that race we looked at, she was part of the pace last time out with Assume. So off that, I'm thinking Assume's going to run a giant race this afternoon, second out for Mr. Todd Pletcher. Let's move on to race number 8. We are back on the turf. In fact, an all-turf late double in this upcoming 8th race. A quick one here with this 5-furlong, 3-and-up filly and mare, non-winners of 1 allowance. I looked at it as the best speed in the 2 Fallen Leaf, who's back off a 5-month layoff, and it looked like her form maybe second half of 2019 started to erode a bit, and I like the idea. and theory of just going back to the drawing board and giving her a little time to freshen her up and catch her breath. And if this turf course is friendly to speed, and assuming we get the good or close to the good A-level effort of Falling Leaf, she's going to be a tough horse to run down this afternoon. But you got her as like the dominant speed, and then you've got Smack as probably the best finisher in the race, as we'll take a look and backtrack to Smack's most recent start for Christophe Command. Now, I don't think she's going to, in a race that has Fallen Leaf and even has some other quick horses like the 5 Twice as Magical, and maybe towards the outside, the number 9 Sayonara Baby. I don't know if Smack is going to get this first over tracking under a ton trip that she got in her maiden victory, and I guess it was a somewhat belated maiden win. But I think the real comforting aspect of a horse like the one Smack is she's been able to be a mid-pack finisher, stalker, closer. She's got flexibility, and I think that'll ultimately serve her well this afternoon as she comes out of a pretty fast race. Don't know what was behind her, and she did get a pretty strong figure last time out, at least on Bayer, but still, she's a major player who's run well in all of her turf races. You've also got the blazing white-hot Christophe Command sending her out. Now, my late pick 5 single is found and is housed in this upcoming Thursday nightcap as we end the day in style with a 3-year-old maiden Special Weight. And as I said at the top of talking about the final 5 races on the card, been waiting for the Klarovich horse, a pricing exercise, to run back in this spot for Chad. There were some whispers that this colt was pretty good going into that first start. He got bet strongly, and that basically, unfortunately for him, evaporated with an outside post and somewhat of a one-speed, or I should say first-gear lethargic type beginning. We'll take a look at that with a horse who was just from an outside post hung out to dry early on, and you'll see as they break, and he was squeezed back and steadied ever so mildly off the break, and he's just not in a great spot going into that first turn with basically the entire field in front of him and him not covered up or saving ground inside. Rod Ortiz Jr., though, I think sensing he needed to get this horse in the game, opted to basically go with a steady, uncovered, unencumbered wide advance down the backstretch. And I guess the good part of that was, well, you've got a horse who's now within striking range. The bad part is you're running basically 4 to 5 wide, 4 abreast there, without being able to save ground, without pulling a breather. And you would imagine off the far turn, pricing exercise, my short comment for him or trip note from the quarter pole home was no punch. He's a tired horse by this point. Assuming he got some fitness and foundation out of this race, maybe learned a thing or two, and you combine that with what I had heard about him, and I think you've got a very, very dangerous, logical-looking horse second time out for Chad Brown in a race that, again, is multi-layered for sure. Even looking at a horse like the 7 Bear Alley, who may be coming out of the best last-out effort. There are some firsters in the field, so maybe that's not a wholly fair statement, but no knocks on the dirt race last time out for Dale with the number 7 Bear Alley, and I think the real kicker with this pricey colt by Will Take Charge, he's a half to both Arklow and Murad, who have both rung up multiple turf stakes winning resumes, respectively, in their own careers. He should run pretty well, but I am very much with the CB Army in the nightcap, taking the number 5 pricing exercise as we, with about 25, 30 minutes to post, take a little time out here on Gulfstream Park today. We will catch up with our good buddy Pete Aiello upstairs in just a few moments for those scratches and changes.